We have been bringing in the harvest like crazy. Our garden is still full of so much produce, but it is October, and that means that frost will be here. It's right around the corner, and so we are taking steps every single day to bring in the harvest and bring in all of that beautiful produce to either put up in the freezer, to can, ferment, or dry. So last night I brought in, Sawyer and I harvested all the leeks. And so last year I thought, oh, they can probably dry like an onion. I did not know how to preserve leeks. So this year we're trying something different because drying them didn't quite work last year. They didn't store very well in the pantry. And this year I harvested them all. And what I'm doing is I pulled them out of the ground, shook all the dirt off of their roots, cut the roots off, and then a leek has these beautiful, big, bright green leaves. And so I cut them back because you don't eat that part. You really just eat this white part. And a leek is essentially in the onion family. So it has a really mild flavor. So it's great for soups and stews. And that's what I'm going to use it for this winter. So I'm going to leave a few of these fresh, just in the fridge for this week's dinners. And then the rest I'm going to just clean up and chop up and put in gallon bags and freeze for any kind of soup or stew that we have, you know, this winter. So really, they're really dirty. And so I'm peeling back all of their leaves, putting it in the slop bucket for the pigs, peeling back as much as I can, and then cutting off that end. And then I'm gonna just go through and really wash them good because they tend to get a lot of dirt within the inner parts of the leaves. So I'll cut these up, put them in a strainer, and rinse them all off before I freeze them. So I don't know, what do you guys do with your leeks? I wanna know what you do with them because this is the second year that we have grown these beautiful, big, abundant leeks. And I want to preserve them well, but I also wanna enjoy them fresh and eat them fresh because they are so delicious in any meal. So one thing I'm gonna do before I actually freeze these leeks, put them in bags, is I'm gonna blanch them. And so while the water is going, I'm gonna show you using this leek that never developed right as an example of what you're gonna do in the spring. You're gonna get a bunch of these little plants, or maybe you'll start them by seed yourself. And we're in Pennsylvania, we're zone 6B. Leeks thrive in cooler weather, usually zone 7 and 8 they thrive in. But here in Pennsylvania, we have grown leeks 2 years, I would say maybe even 3, with success. And so all we did was just get these little plants at the greenhouse, and then we put them in the ground about 6 inches apart. You're gonna put them in the soil, and then they're gonna start developing these leaves like around and around and around. It's just going to be like an onion because they are in the onion family. And so they're just going to continue to grow their outer leaf as they grow all summer long. And when they are about 1 inch in diameter, which is the size of what I cut here, when they're about 1 inch in diameter, you can harvest them to use them fresh, or like we're doing here, freezing them. They're great sauteed and in soups and stews, and even bone broth. We love to add them to our bone broth in the wintertime. Okay, so I have a pot of boiling water in the process of blanching. Blanching does take some time, especially if you have a lot of vegetables, but it is essential to blanch your vegetables before freezing. What it essentially is dipping your vegetables in boiling water or steam for a certain amount of time. Blanching helps protect the flavor and the texture of your vegetables as they enter the freezer. You know, we think that, oh, putting our vegetables in the freezer, they're just gonna be good for, you know, forever, right? Until we're ready for them. But essentially you need to blanch so that way it gives you a longer shelf life in the freezer. So if you don't, you don't really need to blanch these leeks if you're going to use them in stews and stuff, and they're going to be, you know, required to be soft anyway. But instead of having 1 to 2 months in the freezer, you're gonna get 3 to 4 months in the freezer. And then it just preserves the harvest a little bit better. So with leeks, you only have to dip them in boiling water for a minute and then run them under really cold water or have an ice bath ready for them when they come out. So I like to just put them in a strainer so that they don't go everywhere. They're easier to dip in, pull out. So only a minute. Some vegetables require 3 minutes, some 6 minutes, but you don't want to cook them fully. You just want to stop the enzymatic action within the plant, within that vegetable. Again, to help with flavor, to help with texture, to remain, you want all those vitamins and minerals to still be intact. So I'm gonna dip these in, wait a minute, and then pull them out. Thank you, honey. Okay. Now we wait. Just a minute. You wanna see? Yay! Looking good. So these look amazing. They're not fully cooked. They are just slightly cooked. And I'm going to now run them under really, really cold water until they are all cooled down. You want to stop that cooking action. Sawyer, do you want to help me with these? Okay. So while Sawyer runs these under really cold water, I have some that I'm going to bag up. I'm just going to put them in some gallon freezer bags. They're all nice and cool. And then we'll have this spot for our next batch. So make sure you label it, put the date on it so you know when you put it in, and that way you know how soon you have to use it. Try to get all the air out too. That'll help them stay fresher. We don't have a vacuum sealer. We did at one point. It was just, took way too much time. We just tried to simplify. We're gonna use these up in about 3 months. Let me know what you're bringing in. What are you harvesting? What do you have questions about? What are you just loving about your fall garden right now? Are you putting it to sleep? Are you planting anything in it? I know this time of year we're going to be planting garlic really soon, so that way it can be all tucked in and growing under that soil all winter long, preparing itself to make its grand entrance in spring. So that's one thing we have to do yet. We also have to bring in our sweet potatoes, don't we? We need to do that today. All right, have an amazing rest of your week. And again, let me know what you are harvesting and what you're putting up for those cold winter months ahead.